Good evening, and tonight we revisit a moment inside the United States Senate that has already entered the political history books. A confrontation so sudden, so intense, and so consequential that it transformed a routine oversight hearing into a national reckoning over truth, power, and accountability at the highest levels of American law enforcement. What unfolded in less than 2 minutes inside the Senate Judiciary Committee in January 2025 has continued to send shockwaves through Washington, the intelligence community, and beyond, raising urgent questions about transparency, sworn testimony, and whether political influence can still bend the machinery of justice behind closed doors. The hearing itself was scheduled as a standard oversight session focused on FBI operations, internal reforms, and leadership priorities under newly appointed FBI Director Kash Patel. For hours, senators questioned Patel on staffing changes, internal disciplinary reviews, counterintelligence threats, and the Bureau's relationship with the Department of Justice. While the atmosphere was tense, as most high-profile confirmation-era hearings are, nothing suggested the explosive turn that was about to unfold. Director Patel appeared calm, composed, and confident, responding in carefully measured language, frequently emphasizing procedure, institutional norms, and constitutional boundaries. But that calm would not last. Late into the session, Senator Adam Schiff was recognized for questioning. His tone was measured, almost understated, as he pivoted away from personnel issues and toward a subject that had lingered quietly on the fringes of public awareness: the August 2025 prison transfer of Ghislaine Maxwell, the convicted sex trafficker whose crimes and connections had long symbolized elite impunity in the American justice system. Until that moment, Maxwell's transfer from a higher security federal facility to a minimum security prison camp had drawn limited official explanation, despite concern from legal analysts and victims advocates. Schiff began by asking Director Patel a seemingly simple question: whether he had any personal involvement or awareness regarding the transfer decision. Patel responded confidently, stating that he did not recall any direct role and emphasizing that inmate placement decisions fall under the authority of the Bureau of Prisons, not the FBI. On its face, the response aligned with bureaucratic structure, and under normal circumstances, it might have ended the line of inquiry. But this was not a normal moment. In a move that stunned the room, Senator Schiff produced what he described as an interagency memorandum dated August 12, 2025, displayed on FBI letterhead and bearing Kash Patel's signature. According to Schiff, the document recommended the expedited transfer of Maxwell and requested that certain standard review protocols be bypassed due to what the memo described as security and administrative considerations. As Schiff began reading directly from the document, the atmosphere inside the chamber shifted instantly. Cameras captured Patel's reaction, his posture stiffening, his expression changing from composed to visibly unsettled. Observers in the room later described a palpable tension as senators leaned forward, staffers froze, and the gallery fell silent. Schiff pressed on, asking Patel whether the signature on the document was authentic and whether the memo accurately reflected his earlier testimony. What followed was one of the most dramatic exchanges seen in a Senate hearing in years. Patel challenged Schiff's interpretation, arguing that the memo was being mischaracterized and insisting that interagency communication does not equate to unilateral authority or operational control. Schiff, however, was relentless. He pointed out what he described as a direct contradiction between Patel's sworn testimony moments earlier and the contents of the memorandum now entered into the record. Then he posed a stark question: was the director's earlier statement inaccurate, or was the memo itself false? At that point, the hearing erupted. Voices were raised. Chairman Dick Durbin struck the gavel repeatedly in an attempt to restore order. Patel accused Schiff of engaging in political theater and selectively quoting internal correspondence, while Schiff countered that the issue was not politics, but honesty under oath. For approximately 94 seconds, the chamber descended into chaos, senators speaking over one another, security edging closer, and millions of viewers watching live as institutional decorum collapsed in real time. Then came the allegation that would define the moment. Schiff suggested that Maxwell's transfer may have been designed to keep her comfortable and compliant, given her extensive knowledge of powerful individuals connected to her crimes. Patel immediately rejected the claim as baseless and inflammatory, calling it a reckless insinuation that endangered institutional credibility. But the words were already out, and the political damage was immediate. Within minutes, clips of the confrontation began circulating online. Within hours, they were trending globally. Cable news networks interrupted regular programming to replay the exchange. Legal analysts, former prosecutors, and intelligence officials flooded the airwaves, debating whether Patel's statements could meet the legal threshold for perjury if investigators determined he knowingly provided false or misleading testimony to Congress. The response from Capitol Hill was swift and deeply divided. Some lawmakers, including several Republicans, called for clarification and transparency, stating publicly that any appearance of misleading Congress demanded serious review. Others defended Patel, arguing that the memo was being taken out of context and oversight hearings should not devolve into prosecutorial ambushes. Meanwhile, victims' advocacy groups renewed calls for a full accounting of Maxwell's treatment within the federal system, arguing that her transfer symbolized a broader pattern of leniency for elite offenders. Behind the scenes, sources familiar with the matter told reporters that the transfer had indeed deviated from standard procedures, prompting internal reviews within both the FBI and the Bureau of Prisons. While no immediate charges were filed, the Justice Department confirmed that it was examining the circumstances surrounding the transfer, including interagency communications and decision-making authority. As days turned into weeks, the confrontation took on a larger meaning. What began as a dispute over a single memo became a referendum on institutional trust. To critics, the incident reinforced long-held suspicions that powerful figures receive special treatment behind closed doors. To defenders of the FBI, it represented a dangerous politicization of law enforcement oversight that could undermine national security operations. And to the American public, it raised a more fundamental question. When sworn testimony collides with documented evidence, who is held accountable? The Maxwell transfer also reignited broader debates about transparency in the justice system. Legal scholars noted that while interagency recommendations are common, the optics of such involvement in a case as sensitive as Maxwell's were deeply problematic. Intelligence experts warned that public trust in federal institutions depends not only on legality, but on credibility, and credibility, once damaged, is difficult to restore. By the end of January 2025, the hearing had become a defining moment of the political year. Congressional oversight committees announced follow-up inquiries, advocacy groups demanded independent investigations, and the phrase 94 seconds entered the political lexicon as shorthand for a collapse of confidence witnessed live by millions. Yet perhaps the most enduring impact of that moment lies not in what was proven, but in what was revealed. It revealed how fragile institutional trust can be when transparency falters. It revealed the power of documentation in an era of denial. And it revealed that even in the most controlled environments of government, truth has a way of forcing itself into the open, sometimes abruptly, sometimes uncomfortably, and sometimes at great political cost. As of tonight, the full legal consequences of that exchange remain unresolved. Investigations continue. Interpretations differ, narratives compete. But one fact remains undisputed. A routine Senate hearing was transformed into a national spectacle that reshaped the conversation around accountability at the highest levels of American governance. And as Americans continue to watch this story unfold, the question now facing Washington is not merely who was right or wrong in that moment, but whether the institutions designed to safeguard justice can withstand the scrutiny they demand of others. Because in a democracy, accountability is not optional, and sworn testimony is not symbolic. It is the foundation upon which public trust stands, or falls.